good evening, everyone from a windy hailing island. I'm Ryan Thundersmith, or Ryan Smith, however you know me. And tonight I'm here with a chap who you probably all know very, very well. He actually started me on this journey of doing podcasts, video interviews, gave me the confidence to do it. And it's Mr. Dane Campbell of Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. Good evening.
Hey, thanks for the very warm welcome, and I'm glad I could be of some form of service or influence to you to do this yourself. Because it's pretty daunting. I remember before I did my very first one, I was pretty scared. I didn't think I'd be very good. I still don't think I'm that good, but people seem to enjoy it. So I continued on doing it. I have taken a break recently. Too much going on in my life, basically, and this had to go for the meantime. But I am hoping to start back up next year. Breaking news.
Yeah, you heard it here first. But no, definitely. Yeah. But seriously, like I said, not just an influence. I said an inspiration because you're a lovely guy. Obviously, I had the privilege of doing a run of dates in 22 about November time with you guys. Which was really good. Obviously didn't get to, like I said, didn't get to hang out with you as much as possible, but hopefully later down the road. But lovely guy, and obviously very accommodating. But definitely inspired me from what you did with your video interviews, and obviously I guess the caliber of interviewees that you've had. Obviously you interviewed me quite a while ago, but you've had some real, obviously like Mickey D, and Mark Richardson, loads of other people, So obviously thanks for sort of inspiring me to do it. And I think you're right. It is daunting. I mean, the first interview I did was with Brad Marr, who was with Piston, but now he's with. He's bad touch now and has been for a while. But my kind of second interview I did, I think thinking back then it was quite big. Thinking back to it now was like Jesus. Was a guy called Adam Box from Brothers Osborne, and Brothers Osborne, they're I can't remember how many Grammys they've won, but they've been nominated for loads of. Anyway, cut a long story short, I did the interview with him, had this set up. I asked him if he wanted to do the interview, and I was really nervous because, like, as far as I was concerned, I was like such a tiny fish compared to him. And he kind of came down to my level and was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Did the interview, listened to it back, and that was the problem. Listening to it back, I was like, I can't hear any audio. I was like, oh shit, what have I done? And it was like the first one I'd properly done, and I hadn't selected the internal and external audio, so I basically played it back, and I was like, oh, this is going to be bad to release because I'm going to have to put this out to lip readers only because I can't hear it. And I was really apologetic. I was like, you're so busy, I'm really, really sorry. I felt like such an amateur. And he was really cool about it. It was like, yeah, man, whatever, we'll do it again. And it was great. But it's when you've got someone who's such a high profile drummer, and I do consider you to be one of those as well. Obviously having Phil as your dad and the band you're in. I
don't have a Grammy.
Don't have a Grammy. Grammy, not yet.
Grammy.
Maybe I don't know what the Welsh equivalent would be of a Grammy.
A Welsh Music Award that exists.
WMA.
I don't think we've ever been nominated for that.
No one's got taste.
I've got a Metal Hammer Award. That's pretty.
That is amazing. Metal Hammer. I think that's
the best debut album, The Age of Absurdity. So I'm proud of that one.
Yeah, that's something really awesome to have. So maybe WMA's kind of, maybe that's coming.
Maybe, yeah. I don't think they like us in Wales. I don't think we're their typical. I don't really want to offend anyone here, but there's a lot of great music in Wales. There's a lot of Welsh language music, which often gets, nominated for these things. It's not always a Welsh language artist, but it's normally more in that indie kind of singer-songwriter department. You don't see many rock and metal bands involved in these lists.
No, I guess you could do an original song, in obviously the Phil Campbell style, and sing it all in Welsh. That could sort of, you
Nah.
know, no,
Well, if one of us spoke Welsh fluently, which none of us do,
okay,
and our singers English, so I don't think that would work.
yeah, I don't know, AI maybe. I'm not sure that's the way
Yeah,
things are going,
yeah,
but
maybe.
but yeah. So it's, and you don't kind of, I guess the worries, you think, oh, you don't want to waste a person's time, and I guess sometimes I think everyone to an extent is comparing themselves to one another in whatever respect. There's always going to be someone, not say better than you, but someone who's obviously further ahead in their career, as it were, and kind of obviously you're striving to kind of get to that sort of level, I guess. And but I think the thing is, you do your own thing, your own individual thing, and that's good enough. And the thing is, it's also like finding, I feel, not with just the drummers but musicians, is trying to find a sense of community, which I think can be found.
Yeah,
The music industry, bands, whatever, it can be, very clicky. You do get your cliques and your kind of group of artists who kind of pop up year after year. But it's just, like I said, I'm not a promoter, and so that's kind of sometimes where it can get a bit complicated and stuff. But yeah, there is community and friendship, and I think, as much as I don't see you very often, consider you to be one of those. And but
oh,
yeah,
thanks, man.
again,
You too.
thanks for starting me off on this journey. But enough sort of say about me or whatever. What I want to talk about, and for people who maybe say don't know you, don't know much about Phil Campbell, if you don't, where have you been living? So for you, when did drums? Well, actually, no. When did music start? And sort of your interest in instruments, because I don't know if maybe the obligatory recorder lesson at school was kind of where you got your first taste of, I don't know, rock and roll with a
Yeah, well,
recorder.
like looking back, yeah, I think I might have been involved in recorder lessons. But yeah, it was in my house. I grew up with it in the house, and my dad had guitars, obviously, being a guitarist. Um, my older brother Todd, who plays guitar in the band, he was already playing guitar at a very young age to a good standard. Um, but yeah, I kind of remember what I think was I'm gonna say like a Yamaha electronic drum pad, like a tabletop pad when you got like the 8 different
Yeah,
circular pads. And I remember, I think that was probably the first introduction to drums, and there was like different sounds on there, and you could play different songs in the background and playing along with that. So I think that's where I was introduced to drumming. I think I was handed guitars, and I remember we had a little tiny flying V around the house. So I did have a little go on the guitar, and I still play a few chords now. I've got a few guitars behind me, but I'm not in the same league as my dad or my brothers. Um, but yeah, that was it really. And I think then we did end up having an acoustic. When I was a bit older, we did end up getting an acoustic kit for the garage, and we used to jam together. But then all the neighbors used to complain, and we had the noise police knocking the door and saying, "Oh, you can't do this," and measuring the sound volume from the bottom of the street, things like that. So we ended up getting a set of Roland V drums, and then from that moment onwards, really, I think that's when I really put the hours in, because I could practice whenever I wanted for as long as I wanted. And we used to jam together, so we'd have a bass amp and a guitar amp in the same room as the electronic drums, and we used to just jam together. And that's how I learned to play. Really, didn't have lessons. Uh, I think I did have a few lessons when I was in my early 20s, but prior to that, no drum lessons. I wish I had, though. Looking back, I really wish I did have drum lessons, but I'm not saying that, and I wasn't encouraged. It just didn't really come up in conversation, or it wasn't ever suggested, really. Um, but yeah, a long time ago, probably talking 5, 6 years old, maybe a bit younger, with the little drum pad thing. Um, but yeah, I don't know the exact age, but I was definitely back then, my dad also had like a pub band, but they played covers in pubs and bars in the local area. So when he was home from tour with Motorhead, he was doing that every now and again. And I think I was definitely 6 years old when I went up to play a song with a band. I think it was like "All Right Now" by Free. That was one of my songs. What else was there? "Knocking on Heaven's Door" was another one. Basically the simple ones. But yeah, but performing in front of an audience, at that age was pretty cool. This is way before social media and YouTube, where you can do that now.
Well, yeah, even before MySpace, if anyone's cool enough to remember that.
Yeah. Well, I was a big MySpace boy, and pretty much that was a massive part of my teenage years. Really, was MySpace and music, and I had a few bands at the time, and we all had music on MySpace. I had my own music page, playing bass guitar and stuff like that. It's still on there somewhere, but I think all the music got deleted, or they lost a load of data, like years and years ago. So a lot of the songs that had been uploaded from that era have disappeared off it. And unfortunately, I don't have the files anymore. But I'm gutted about that.
I say maybe that's a good. Yeah, I say maybe that's a good thing. All those sort of dodgy haircuts and eyeliner and stuff, or maybe I'm just talking about myself. But yeah.
I never did the eyeliner.
No.
I was, I did partake in a few side fringes,
yeah,
and things like that. And I did the baggy jeans and I did the skinny jeans.
Okay, I was going to say, 'cause you did the skinny jeans where it feels like your veins are being kind of cut off, the blood circulation to your veins are being cut off, but then also kind of, the baggy jeans, which were very impractical, especially skating, so they'd either get caught in a wheel or you'd have it looked like you'd pissed yourself because they're dragging the water as you're walking and just absorbing water, so, yeah.
All the kids are wearing those again now.
Well, combat trousers, I think, with the pockets.
Oh, I see like big skater jeans everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe not where you live. I
don't
know. I've seen a lot of that going on. Yeah, it's weird how it's all come around again. Like the big wide skater trainers,
like Etnies, and I remember them.
Stuff. They're all back in again now.
Yeah, it's kind of like shoes that make you look like you got feet like a giant. They're kind of bigger than your actual feet, but bloody comfy. I remember. But so I mean, fashion we'll talk about a bit later. But
yeah, I'm not the man to talk about fashion. Too really. I was going to wear a Christmas jumper, and I thought, maybe. I wasn't sure when you were going to put this out, and I thought, maybe I shouldn't. But you've got one.
I've got my black. You can't see it, but I got a Black Sabbath one. I've had it for a while. I remember I was trying to bloody get one off EMP, but I was like, I'm not paying 120 quid for it. And then a friend said that they were selling it for like 40 quid. So yeah,
120.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of money. EMP, yeah, but I really like it. It's it's the only Christmas jumper I have that I think's worth wearing.
Okay, that's cool.
But so, I mean, in terms of music, obviously, growing up in in the family, being influenced, surrounded by obviously your dad and Motorhead and stuff like that. I mean, was kind of what was your choice in music? Like, were you okay? My dad's in Motorhead. This is the music that I've kind of. You get exposed to. Did you have like a type of music that you were really into in the early days?
Obviously, until I got to a certain age, I was just kind of listening to stuff that was showing to me at home, and then my first CD I ever bought, but that was because my dad recommended it, was AC/DC Back in Black. But I also bought on the very same day, again, recommendation from my dad, random as hell, Marty Friedman, who was the guitar player from Megadeth at the time. He had a solo album out called True Obsessions. So my joint first album was AC/DC Black in Black and Marty Friedman, True Obsessions.
Which pretty good.
Probably the only person in the world I could say that. But yeah, I guess when I kind of became a teenager, it went from just jamming with my brothers and my dad, I ended up joining like a band with. I'm still friends with the guy now, Tom Viney. Hello, Tom, if you're listening. Probably not. So he lived on the street below me, and we used to kind of like ride bikes together and stuff like that. But he also played guitar. He was a few years older than me. But him and a guy called Malcolm, they wanted to start a band. I don't think there was any drummers their age, so they asked me, "Oh, do you want to have a jam with us?" So that's when I kind of got into, we played like Nirvana covers and stuff like that. A bit more grunge stuff. We did play metal. We played Metallica and Megadeth and things like that. But I guess that was kind of more. It was kind of new at the time. It wasn't brand new music because this was a little bit later than when Nirvana came out and all that. But still, compared to growing up listening to Deep Purple and Motorhead and Saxon and things like that, which was what I was exposed to as a kid, and stuff like that. So yeah, and then like a little bit later on, I got into my own bands, which had nothing, no one else in the family were into these bands, like Incubus and the whole new metal era, and I was big into Primus. I love Primus, and then that band with that same guy Tom Viney, we ended up getting a different bass player years later, and we were playing Primus covers. I think I was like 16 by that point, so we were playing like local pubs and the school concerts. We were doing like Presidents of the USA. Do you know that band? So we did Peaches and She's Lump. Was that?
Yeah.
She's Lump? Yeah. I forgot what the name of the song. So we did stuff like that. Primus, kind of just a bit more. I don't know, a bit more out there band.
Alternative, I think, is the kind of.
Yeah, alternative, I suppose. Yeah, not so much the mainstream rock and metal anymore. And just went from there. And then I got into like some of the pop punk stuff, which that definitely wasn't from my dad. Like I was a big Blink fan, and I used to come home from school and play my Roland kit. I'd stick on, like, my favorite album was the live album, which was the Mark, Tom and Travis show, I think it was called at the time. Lightning fast, just loads of dick jokes, stuff like that. But I used to play along to that album, or try to anyway. And I think that's like really how I progressed as a drummer in terms of like speed. Not that I'm the fastest drummer, I'm not, but like just playing like that punk rock stuff opened up a new avenue for me, I think. But yeah, I used to love all that stuff, and you get influenced by your friends then, because by that point I was in school and my other friends were also into rock music and guitar music, whereas when I was younger it was all just pop, mainstream pop chart music. But then I met a load of guys that were like skater, they used to wear skater jeans, and they were into all these bands and like Rage Against the Machine and like I said, all the new metal stuff. Like I wasn't, I didn't go crazy with the new metal stuff, but like, I did love Limp Bizkit. I did like Korn, Deftones. I still do.
Yeah.
Whether you class that as new metal, it was from that era. Like I didn't go big into it, but I was definitely part of that movement.
Yeah, some would. I don't know. It's different. Like the whole categorization of music. You got your genres, your subgenres, your subgenres, your subgenre. Or what, you can kind of classify bands until the cows come home. Which is why alternative kind of encompassed kind of everything. What used to like Incubus, I was like, I remember. I think the first album was Morning View, and that was for me. I thought that was a brilliant album.
Yeah. That was the first one I heard in full, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is incredible!" And I kind of went back then and listened to the earlier stuff, which was crazy, very impressive from a musical standpoint. But I didn't get into it as much. I preferred the more chilled, kind of more riffy songs, less of the funk.
Yeah, which I think like because like the Chili Peppers, they experimented with. I think there's an album called like the Uplift Mofo Party, which was I think it was still Frusciante, but yeah, it was a bit like experimental, funk. I mean, Chili Peppers had that obviously funk element, but I don't know. It's like almost, I don't know. They're mixing around with too many different styles, and obviously it's sort of not what I guess you'd describe the typical Chili Pepper sound. But I don't know. Like Jane's Addiction did that for a period of time. So I love, really do like Jane's Addiction. But I know what you're saying. I think every band's been through that kind of funk stage, or sort of jazz funk, whether it's kind of intentional or not. But in Limp Bizkit, I still, I love from the was it the Mission Impossible film? Was it Take a Look Around?
Yeah.
And I think it's a really, really good song. But yeah, even obviously Chocolate the Starfish flavored water, and people. Like, I remember when Rolling came out, and everyone's doing the whole Rolling thing, and people still do. But yeah, really,
Yeah.
really good band. Like, was it Wes Borland? Great player. It's like what I somehow I think from Biscuit I got into Manson, because you had because John Five, I think on and off, but again a great player. So I got into Marilyn Manson. So into I don't know, say the goth. I didn't go through a goth phase. I think everyone almost did, but
I didn't either. But
no,
I had friends that were full on goth as well, and they went through a period of idolizing Marilyn Manson and other stuff. I guess, but I was into the music of Marilyn Manson. I just didn't really understand the aesthetic of it all. But he had some cool, like that, that era, the Hollywood album, the fight song, all that.
Yeah. I can't remember. Yeah,
like that era. I like that. I did go see him live. I think at around that point he was playing arenas probably. But yeah, I didn't get too deep into that kind of stuff.
No, but it's quite. I mean, thinking about it, as much as say goth industrial, like because I quite like Nine Inch Nails, but I like Trent Reznor as a producer and a musician and a composer. And Ilan Rubin's a great drummer. What was the point I was going to make? But yeah, kind of Marilyn Manson. If you think about it, if you go back to like New York and like Mark Bolan and sort of before kind of Mark Bolan formed T-Rex, there's a lot of like you can listen to Manson and a lot of bands of that era. There's a lot of glam in it, if you think about it. And even T-Rex, say for their era, quite heavy. Like heavy without being heavy, a bit like Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf. If you listen to that, some of it is really heavy, but again, it's heavy without being blasted at you, sort of.
Yeah. No, yeah, obviously, in that that's probably where it all originated. When you talk about heavy rock music, essentially came from the blues, and they were the edgier, some of the edgier blues artists that probably did influence all that. And when they, I think like when they founded distorted guitar sound, that was like an accident, and then they just kind of explored that, and then it is what it is today. Well, many years ago. It probably hasn't changed that much in the last 30 years. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting when you look at the history of, any musical style and where it came from. But certainly, my expertise is probably not the right word, but, I've always been a rock music guy. If you start talking to me about electronic dance music, I haven't got a clue. I'm not really into it. I get why people are into it, but I'm not.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything for me at all. Sorry.
No. I'll give you a story about electronic, traditional German music, not Umpar music, but traditional German techno. But I'll tell you that a bit later. It's quite interesting, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, so music-wise, from when you started, and obviously you went through school, and obviously getting exposed to like you said, your sort of your Motorheads, your Magnum, Saxon, those AC/DC and all the bands of that era, and then Queen, and were there any drummers as a youngster? Obviously Mickey D, he's a fantastic drummer, but was there anyone you really looked up to, like your first drummer, but who you looked at and went, yeah, I want to play like that, or I want to be like that guy.
Like when you mention a load of those bands, I probably didn't really think about the individual drummers being individual drummers. It was more like I was into the music or I wasn't into the music.
Mm.
Obviously, yeah, there was a Mickey D influence. I had a poster of him on my bedroom wall, things like that. I don't, that was just because my dad came home from tour one year with some signed posters of Mickey D, so I stuck one on my wall. But I don't think I really looked at drummers and idolized them individually at that point. Um, one thing I've just thought about now is we used to watch VHS videos of players like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and stuff like that. So I did used to watch their drummers. I forgot all their names now, but I think Satriani at the time had a drummer, Jeff Campitelli or something like that. And there's this
Okay.
one video we had. He had a yellow, I think it was DW kit, and his drumming was just so solid. And I think that's where, possibly where, I feel my style of drumming has been influenced by. It's just keeping it solid. A bit of power in there. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I try and make my drumming sound powerful. And he wasn't doing anything fancy, but I thought he was cool. So him, maybe not on purpose, but that probably did influence me a lot. And then it wasn't really till I got into, the bands that I'd chosen to get into, and, with music TV and Kerrang and MTV and all that stuff, when I was actually watching these bands and you actually get to see the drummers. I guess I probably paid a bit more attention then. Obviously, like Travis Barker would have been a big one. I still think he's great. He's amazing. Kind of like, he's a very powerful drummer, but he's a very busy drummer. So it's like opposite to that, that the Joe Satriani guy. Dave Grohl, I always have to say his name. Just in the style, being in that cover band when I was young, learning the Nirvana tracks, that was an influence. Like, I wasn't really watching videos of him because it wasn't easy to watch videos of bands back then, but I was listening to the CDs. They'd probably be the two of the main ones. And then I was also why can't I remember his name? It's just ridiculous. It's embarrassing. The drummer from Muse, that guy.
Dominic Howard.
Dominic Howard, incredible. Yeah. Like, because I loved Muse, and I've always thought he was like perfect drummer for that band and for any kind of rock band that's got that slightly commercial edge on how to write parts for a band like that, because they were very important, distinguishable parts in lots of the songs. But like, at not one point is he overplaying, but he's doing some incredible stuff, and it's just the groove of it, So I think him, because I remember, when that Plug In Baby, those music videos came out, I thought they were bloody cool, and I did see them play live before that album came out. They supported Skunk Anansie, so they were another band that I grew up listening to as well, actually. So Mark Richardson played on most of their records. He's incredible. Again, a big, powerful drummer. He's actually twice the size of me, but again, not too show off, but he writes some incredible parts and adds a lot to the music. So I think, these kind of drummers more so than the more fancy, prog, I'm not just saying prog drummers, because they're obviously incredible as well. But for me, I was like, I like what this guy's doing, just kind of grooving, rather than having a million toms and a million cymbals and hitting as many of them as often as possible, which is obviously very impressive as well, because I can't do that. And like, I admit, I'm not like anywhere near that level, but it's because I've never been interested in playing that kind of music. I think I've never felt the need, and like blast beats and things like that. It's incredible, like, that people can do that, but like, I don't play music that requires that. So why would I spend months learning how to do that, you know.
Mm.
I know it's always good to open up your abilities and technique, but if it's a style of music that I don't think I'm ever going to play, I know my band are never going to want me to play a blast beat, so I'm not going to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just pointless.
But you can be sure, though, the drummers that are good at blast beats, obviously they've got the stamina. I
Yes.
guarantee you, at home, they can manually whisk some egg whites into a pretty good meringue. You know, because I think I get tired about after 3 seconds whisking an egg. I go, oh, I've got to switch hands. I think that's why I can't do blast beats. You know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it is like technically incredible, but you have to like to get to those levels of those guys. I think it takes like years or months and years of just practicing and trying it a little bit faster, going a little bit longer, and then a little bit faster again, a little bit longer. But you know, if you're into that music, great. It does require that. And like I watch some people send me videos. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. But I'm like, I don't need to play that, so I'm not gonna
That's it. Yeah. Everything.
go into it. But yeah, I think we've probably gone off on a small tangent there.
No,
So
no, no, no.
apologies.
No, no, no. But yeah, we're talking about like obviously, you know, drummers who've influenced you. And I know like Grohl, yeah, ultimately would have influenced, you know, probably every drummer, you know, or most. The same as you could put obviously throw in John Bonham,
Yeah,
you know, Ringo Starr. I mean, you know, you can sort of list can go on. Ginger Baker, if you're that way, and claim Roger Taylor. You know, I think Grohl was is a solid kind of, you know, for that kind of power and energy. You know, I think like you were saying
yeah,
about Dominic Howard, about, you know, not over the top, but and like your, you know, obviously your podcast, you know, it's titled, you know, Drum for the Song. It's all, you know, that's what it's all about. You know, is playing that stuff that yeah, that I guess reinforces the music that, you know, your other bandmates are sort of trying to make. And you know, there are times where, you know, it'll call for something maybe a bit more out of the pocket, you know, because everyone talks about playing in the pocket and stuff like that.
yeah,
You know, where you've got your natural push and pulls, and everyone's got their moment to kind of do something a bit. You know, Keith Moon again, another drummer. You know, so yeah, like you say, it's just what suits the music. And you can tell, like, I think maybe especially 'cause I'm thinking going back to school, young drummers who, I don't know, I'm not saying necessarily starting out, but you can tell those who are really trying to sort of push way too hard, like way out of their limits and sort of, I guess, say like abilities.
mm,
You know, again, less is more, you know, but again, it's kind of having that discipline to kind of, you know, um, yeah, solid, steady, you know, steady Eddie. And yeah, the last thing you want to do is make the front man or the other guys in the band feel a bit uncomfortable because you're, you know, trying shit out, you know, that you've not done before in a song maybe you've played for 2 years. Doing that in the studio, fine. Doing it live, wrong place to do it. You know.
no, exactly. And I guess there's probably bands that are more used to a bit of improvisation during live shows, and if that's your thing, I guess you're more, you know, expecting it if that happens, which is fine.
Mm,
And I guess there's some bands that get bored of playing the songs the same every night. I know I do. I don't. There's not a lot of improvisation in our set. You know, every now and again there's little fills that I kind of blag on the spot, but they always start and end at the same time,
yeah.
and they're generally the same kind of notes, but they might be on different voices. You know.
Mm,
Um, But yeah, I think it all depends on the band and like what they're expecting. And uh, some bands are more like jammy, if that makes sense,
mm.
where you kind of expect them to play something slightly different. And sometimes you'll have a solo section. Like I don't really do solos myself. Um, like yeah, like when you say live, I'm just not confident enough to play something that I'm not I haven't practiced, you know,
Yeah.
which is not, I don't think that's a good trait to have. I'd rather be confident enough to just kind of go off on a tangent if I need to. And I'm sure there's loads of other drummers that are more comfortable doing that. But I'm not one of those. It probably comes from playing in lots of originals bands since I was a kid, and not being in those kind of cover bands playing pubs where no one really cares, and you
can get away with murder.
you can get away with, yeah, because I've not really done a
Literally.
lot of that. I've not done a lot of that. I played in like a blues rock band for a couple of years on and off, and that was fun. There was a lot more improv involved in that. Three-piece. Again, I think when you're a three-piece, it's not. I feel like the drum kit kind of has a bit more of a place, rather than if you were in a band with two guitars, a bass, and a singer. I think then the drummer is more considered to be the backbone. But when it's a power trio or whatever, if that's the right word, everyone's kind of as important as each other in that way. And like, I guess with your band, like, I know there's lots of instruments going on with your band, but I feel like you could probably play, like in some of the songs I've heard on record, like the drums are pretty prominent in some of the parts, which is cool, which I think is great. I've just not been in many bands like that, really. Especially in the band I'm in now, I feel like it's all about the guitars and the vocals, and I'm just providing the timing at the back.
But then if you didn't if you didn't have, use Overkill as an example, if you didn't,
I suppose.
if you were like a bit behind or a bit ahead, that, I guess that's that kind of song relies on that constant double kick pattern. So those, I guess, say the really, I don't know, like We Will Rock You, there's some very iconic drum parts, especially which you're having to play, I guess, say someone else's part, Mickey D or whatever, and so you're kind of, I guess, I don't know if you ever feel under pressure to be like, okay, this is maybe in the early days where you're like, right, I've got to nail this.
Well, with Overkill, I feel whenever we play that, we don't play it at every gig. We tend to play it on a longer headline set. I hate playing it. I feel a lot of pressure every time. I always feel like if I play it too quickly or too fast, the tempo, because we don't use a click for that song. I have started using a click recently,
I remember you saying,
I'll tell you about later. But for that song, it's kind of like a vibe thing. So I'm very conscious of not starting it too quickly. And sometimes if I've had an extra Red Bull that day, I started off so quick, and I get to like the second verse, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get to the end of this. And I always get through. Adrenaline always gets me through, but sometimes it's been pretty close, and I'm like, I feel like my legs are going to fall off. And it's the kind of song where, like, my foot technique isn't brilliant, bass drum technique and all that, and it's that kind of tempo though, where you kind of need that power. It is literally a running on the spot kind of beat. So it I don't know how to play with just using my ankles. I think I do need to use my legs, because I know a lot of these metal drummers, they use more of an ankle technique to play really quickly, but I think that's for like faster tempos again, and more quickly. But I do feel a lot of pressure playing that. When I get to the end, I'm sweating buckets, but I'm glad it's over. But the audience always appreciate it. I kind of don't, and I don't really like the spotlight being on me, because they like it just kind of is, because they introduce the song, and like I've got to start the song, and like, I don't know, I'm used to it now. I prefer the spotlight not being on me, and I think that's one thing I like about being a drummer, is that I'm just at the back, and I think I do my job fairly well, but I don't know. I don't think I'd like the spotlight being on me on too many other songs, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I guess, like, saying Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sods is just about your dad, just about, although that's kind of obviously, that's, a big part of it. I guess almost, maybe even in bands like yours, and your dad's and the others, anyone who comes to see you, anyone who goes to see any band, whether they're a musician or just a music lover, you know, they'll ultimately watch other members of the band, maybe not specifically, but like, I mean, it's say strange, but like, I'll watch, say on purpose, like the guitar players and the bass players and stuff, just because I find, you know, guitars, amps, pedals, and all that stuff very, very interesting, and you know, just how people, I don't know, like say the Cadillac 3, for example, you know, how their setup is and how that translates, you know, from record to live and stuff. And it's really interesting, all the kind of, I guess, the mechanics of playing, all the equipment, and just, you know, but then obviously I'll watch drummers and be like, oh, what, you know, what pedal are they using, or kind of, you know, things like that. But yeah, I guess, yes, it's pressure that you can kind of say do without. But I'd
Yeah,
say,
it's
you
just
know, I'd say, you know, you're a solid drummer. I mean, you weren't doing clicks when obviously we played with you in 22. Clicks do really, like, it's one of those things. I was very anti-click a long time ago. I won this competition with an indie band I was in when I was at
cool.
Southampton, and we got chosen, you know, of the night of the final or whatever it was, by this band called Fleeing New York, who are now Band of Skull. Well, I say now, but were changed to Band of Skulls, and now there's only, I think, two of them. And funny enough, actually, Emma, I think her name's Emma Richardson. She was the bass player of Fleeing New York, Band of Skulls. She's now doing bass. She replaced Kim Deal how long ago? But anyway, she's playing bass with the Pixies, and I'm thinking, shit, how
Oh,
she
wow.
just. I remember watching them like at a place called Talking Heads in Southampton, really good band, and she's doing that. I'm thinking, flip, she's with Frank Black, and you know, well, that's pretty, you know. But anyway, I'm trying to think what the point I was trying to make.
Click
Uh,
tracks.
yeah, click tracks, and so we won this competition. We had this song, and I was like, I thought I'd played it pretty well. And we did the song, and the guy who was the engineer, he'd produced and engineered. Do you remember a band called the Delays? They're a Southampton band. The Delays.
Mm.
Listen, if you mean like your chilled stuff ish, Faded Seaside Glamour. It's a really like proper indie band of the kind of 90s, noughties, anyway. So, and he was like, can can you play this to a click? I was almost like, what's that? What's a click? I don't understand. What is this alien terminology? But anyway, so we kind of listened to it back. We're like, okay, did the click. It took me a while to get used to it. And after maybe about 400, the 400th take, we listened to it back, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, right. And we listened back to the other track. I went without the click. I went, yeah, it's got to do it with a click. And you know, when I was with an electro rock band years ago, I was triggering off MIDI samples with a MIDI trigger, and that was all to a click. And it is really good. It doesn't obviously suit everything. You know, obviously like Muse, you know, click tracks. Everyone's got clicks. But I think, yeah, it definitely does help. But I'd love to. I think, you know, yeah, if I get the opportunity to come and watch you, and if you're playing to a click, just see if I can note, because sometimes you're so on the click, people don't know you're playing to it. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, I feel like I can normally tell if a band's on click or not. But I guess some drummers are just so on it they don't need one. But like knowing, listening to myself live over the years and seeing footage, I know there's a lot of variation in tempos, and we've always kind of thought, well, it's a feeling thing. Whatever everyone is feeling that night. Sometimes people are tired. Sometimes people are up for it. Depends who starts a song. We play together tight, wherever the tempo is,
Mm.
and it's not as if anyone's struggling to keep up. But yeah, it was a weird situation where we never use clicks live. We obviously use them in the studio. Lots of songs in the studio that were written in a rehearsal room without a click. Once we got into the studio and tried to find that tempo for the song, we were like, well, no, it's a bit too slow for this verse, but it's too fast for the chorus. And it's because when we're playing in that rehearsal room, it's changing.
Mm.
And it's because of the feel of the song, and that's what we're used to playing. So there's a few tracks where we've manually changed the tempo on the chorus and then brought it back for the verse, or
Yeah.
vice versa, and stuff like that. and that's just to make it easier to edit, I guess, for the producer, and just so it is more consistent. And those songs live, there's a song that we do called High Rule, and I think that was one of the songs where we did change the tempo of the metronome on the record, but then playing it live, we just had to find the middle ground.
Yeah, the average. Yeah.
The average, and then we ended up at one. But the middle section always felt so slow to me because I was used to playing it so much faster. But it is what it is. Is maths is telling me that's the same tempo. But yeah, it was cool. To be honest, I found it quite fun because it gave me something to concentrate on doing the gig. Because some of these songs I've played a lot over the years, and sometimes you do get a bit lost. And like sometimes I'm playing songs and I'm daydreaming about something that happened in the day or what we had for dinner, or honestly, and I'm like, then I like come back into consciousness. Like, fuck, we're at the we're swearing. This is the solo, okay. and I do that. I kind of meander off sometimes, which is not good. But having that click there gave me something to focus on. And yeah, sometimes you kind of move in and out of it a little bit. I don't think I'm particularly. You bear in mind, this was the first time I ever did it live, was at a gig. We didn't practice it in a rehearsal room or anything like that. It was more to do. I think we tried a song and a half in sound check, and they were like, "Yeah, that'll do." So yeah, I think I did okay, but there's certain songs that just didn't work or didn't call for it, so we've left those clickless.
Yeah, so just live.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to think any drummer watching or any musician watching would be able to tell possibly which songs are to a click and which aren't. It'd be interesting to know. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I think we will possibly consider doing it forward. It's only me.
Oh, so yeah, so they're following you, yeah.
Yeah. Or actually, no, it was also being sent to Todd, my brother, because there's a few songs where he starts on the guitar.
Yeah, so you need that. Yeah.
Intro. And then, but most of them is for me really, and the rest of the band can't hear it, so
yeah,
they're following us, and that's what it is. But it wasn't that. I was literally just using an app on my phone that was being sent as an instrument to the desk, and so the monitor desk was sending that back to us. So there's probably more complicated ways of doing it, and maybe easier ways. But yeah, I literally had my phone on airplane mode, had the set list. There's like an app where I programmed the set list in. Well, basically a song and what tempo the song is. I just press play, and then I just flick between the songs. I guess it's something else to concentrate on and make sure you're on the right one. And there's probably a little less time to dry your hands or have a drink because you're fiddling with that. But yeah, I think it was good. And overall, I think doing that made me play the songs that weren't to click more solidly, because in terms of getting used to the timing and spaces, not that I'm particularly terrible at that, I'm okay at that, but I think playing the other songs to click made the other ones feel tighter and more, and maybe more steady, which is good. So basically the moral of the story is play to a click whenever you can, because it probably makes you a better drummer and gives you a better sense of timing in general.
That's it. So the click's your friend. The click's your friend, not your enemy. As much as I think when you start battling with it, the click's the one that's always right. You got no chance. But it just speaks certain things.
And like, I'm not going to go into it too much, but this is why we started doing it, because it was a long tour. It was about a 5-week tour. And we had another guy, Paul White, that covered for me for the first half of the tour. And he's an amazing drummer. So I rejoined the tour, and the boys literally told me like the night before. So I arrived the night before my first gig. They were like, "Oh, we've been playing some of these songs a bit slower with Paul. Some of the guys find it easier to pace themselves and things like that." So I was like, "Okay, cool." And the sound engineer had like made a recording of that particular gig that night. So I had a quick listen to the songs to get a rough idea. I was like, oh yeah, that probably feels a little bit slower than what we normally did, and stuff like that. But we did the first gig then. I thought I was playing everything slower than I was used to playing, and I still think I did, but it was still faster than what they'd been used to playing with that other guy. So, like, it didn't cause a massive issue, but it was more like, oh, you still need to slow the songs down a bit more. So I said, well, the only way of solving this is if I go on click, and then it's going to be the same every night.
Yeah.
There's no inconsistencies. No one can say, oh, you played High Rule too fast tonight, because I'll be like, well, no,
the same one
at this exact same BPM as I did the night before. So that's why we did it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to everyone's delight, but I think it worked out for the best. And even from a drumming perspective, it felt easier being more consistent. Certain parts that, if we play the song a little bit faster than normal, I might struggle to play a particular fill that was like to the limit of my abilities. But because we were on click, I knew it was coming up. I knew I could comfortably play at that speed, and it was easy. And I guess the muscle memory was in a better state as well, because it was like, well, you did this last night at this tempo, fine, you can do it again. Because there have been parts of the songs and certain things where I'm like, oh, I know they're coming up, and depending on how fast we're playing, I struggle to pull off. There's nothing major, but just little. You probably have similar things where you just get anxious about little parts or little fills that you're maybe not as comfortable playing as the rest of the songs. But so I do go through that. But the click helped that, because it was like, well, this is consistent now. No issues. Nothing to worry about. I can be more confident. And yeah, there you go.
I think that thing when you go on, like, not just keeping it, say, simple within the parameters of a song, but what was I going to say? But yeah, like I say, consistency, and being able to play within your abilities, and also going on, like the amount of times you guys go on tour. I noticed it when we did like a 4-date tour, but we did like 4 festivals in a row. We did like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was like the Thursday show was great, the Friday show was really good, Saturday, Sunday, it was amazing. And it's just, the more you're playing, it's just like, everything's so consistent and sharp. Whereas versus you can't have a show and then you have maybe one for a couple of weeks and you go back into the studio and then you go to a show, it's sort of, but so the tour we got next year, the spring tour, that's going to be really good. But yeah, it teaches you kind of be like, you go, right, I need to up my game on that, or I need to play that just a bit simple. So yeah, no, it's definitely, I think, yeah, click, like you said, if you get the opportunity to play to it, because every studio you go into, if you want to record and stuff, they'll all use a click. Otherwise, it kind of, the production guy, producer, engineer won't be able to edit for shit.
Yeah, I know there are some bands out there now kind of still doing it old school, no click, limited editing, and the more raw kind of sounding bands. And so I love some of those records too. And if that's how you choose to go about your recording, I think that's fine as well. I think there's definitely a cool factor about that. I'd love to do a record like that. I've never done one. I guess the only thing, we've got a live album out, which technically, I guess there's no click on that. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Yeah.
But in terms of a studio album, it would be fun to do something like that. But yeah, an producer's nightmare, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You'd have to play everything spot on first take, pretty much, for that to work.
Yeah, it isn't easy. It's quite, there is, there's definitely a science to an extent.
Yeah.
So sort of, I guess, sort of the next thing is kind of obviously Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons, because I know did you post a video or an audio link? I'm trying to get my sort of dates aligned, but you posted on YouTube, I think it was you playing, it's either audio live, but you were playing with like an experimental indie band, but it was, I think maybe there's an element of electronica, I can't remember, but like, yeah, because like I said, you played in a few bands, but you played in like I'd say a band that's completely, nothing like Phil Campbell. But it was more indie, sort of experimental, not like vastly, but I remember listening to
Uh,
it and going, and it was like, oh, completely different side to your playing,
yeah, it was probably a band called This, which I don't think is a good name. But I joined the band quite well a few years ago. There was a different drummer that played the album, so he wrote the songs with the band and recorded the album, and then he left the band before they ever played a gig. So
That's
it
it.
was
Yeah,
weird. It was weird, kind of coming into that position. But I knew the other members of the bands. They're all like local. I played with their old bands years ago and
Mm,
toured with some of them and stuff like that. So I knew them all personally, and I respect them all as musicians. They're like among some of the best musicians in South Wales. So that's why I was interested in doing it. And I was quite stoked that they were interested in having me play. But like it was definitely out of my comfort zone learning those songs. I would say that yeah, I like quite heavy, like quieter parts, but heavy parts, slightly progressive. Yeah, there's probably an element of indie, post-hardcore-ish, bit of a mixture of everything. But
yeah.
that's what I found really interesting about the band. Vocalist is incredible. Guitar playing is really good. Um, but yeah, different. It was totally different, and I think I enjoyed that because if it felt like more my playing. Like my if anyone's listening, my old band, Straight Lines, is pretty much I wrote the songs with the band, and some of the songs I helped on guitar and bass and stuff like that. But like that is like a prime example of my drumming. Whereas Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons is basically me trying to play like a classic rock drummer. It's not really me, if you know what
Okay.
I mean.
Yeah.
I feel like I've put myself in a little safe box to kind of work to that style of music
Mm,
without kind of going too far out of my lane. But Straight Lines was like, well, I can do anything I want. Yeah, it was part of that. A lot of people would associate it with emo, post punk. I know, slightly punky emo band. Basically, I don't think we were emo, but to some people, they might class
mm.
us as that. I think we were a bit more um, noisier, discordant than the average kind of emo band. But anyway, listen to that. That's like me writing drum parts that I like to suit the music that I'm helping to create. Whereas Phil Campbell is like, oh well, I just want to try and play like Mickey D and Phil Rudd,
Yeah.
and that's about it.
So I guess those
Pretty much.
those 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 parts have already been written, basically. Like the
Yeah, well,
the Motorhead stuff. Put it
well,
this way, the Motorhead stuff
obviously, yeah,
that's
exactly,
already been
yeah,
written for historically for you. So you're playing
yeah.
someone else's blueprint as such.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I don't try and play those songs note for note. I kind of do try and put
Yeah.
my own spin on them. But I think the reason is I've heard so many live versions of those songs over the years, and they're all different. So
Mm.
I'm probably more influenced by the live versions of those songs than the studio tracks. So yeah, but like in terms of the actual Bastard Sons original stuff, I just feel like there's not a lot of room for creativity within that sphere, really. If you like, I think it would change the sound of the band too much if I kind of started playing, you know, like the way the Incubus drummer would play.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work, would it? On a
No.
rock and roll
Yeah.
track. So I'm like, I am thinking, oh, well, what would the guy from Guns N' Roses do on this track? Or, I think of how does this track sound to me? Oh, is this like a Motorheady type one? Yes. Okay. Well, this is quite easy then. Well, this one's got a bit more of a swagger to it. I'm like, oh, think of those kind of maybe 80s bands. or this one's got a Van Halen vibe. Well,
Mm.
what would like, I'm not trying to rip these drummers off. I'm just trying to like get in that zone.
Get in their mindset, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas with the other band, Straight Lines, was just like, well, what would Dane Campbell do? I had a bit more freedom to express myself, I think. And like I listened to those records, and yeah, and there's a few ropey moments, but I'm proud of the songs, and like I just feel like that's me.
Mm.
So yeah, go and check them out. They're all on Spotify.
I think again you'd mentioned it in one of your previous podcasts, and I'm sure I've listened to a track.
Yeah.
But yeah, listening to you play something different, not to say, well, obviously in this case, very much within your comfort zone.
Mm.
But yeah, listening to something, yeah, like obviously, you did some work with obviously our very own Pete Briley. I mean, how did that go? Like the
Well,
kind of the create, like from your perspective, like the creativity process. Because obviously he'd written the song and an idea on how the drum, he wanted the drums. But how did you find that?
well, yeah, that was fun actually, and it was nice to play something that wasn't heavy rock. So that's why I really enjoyed doing that. And Pete had already sent me versions of the tracks with like drum machines on.
Mm,
So that kind of, when people do that, it's kind of difficult. Number one, I think that's kind of what he wanted. He wanted that kind of
yeah,
feel, which is cool. But when people do that, it automatically kind of prevents me from being particularly creative, because I'm like, your brain automatically now has heard that version, and
yeah,
it's and I get, I'm sure he might have been up for the idea of sending different versions of the drums back to him, but I think ultimately, I think he wanted similar to that. So in this situation, I didn't go too crazy with it. But yeah, they turned out really cool. Hopefully, he's had good response from his fans, and I guess your fans are probably more inclined to check that out as well. But yeah, it was relatively easy. Uh, but yeah, I'm up for doing more stuff like that, especially if it's not heavy rock. Just it's just yeah, I just find it. I don't know. I played on a few of my friends' kind of albums, which are a bit more singer songwriter
yeah,
folky based. So I've really enjoyed that. Playing closed hi hats,
yeah,
things like that. I don't get to do that a lot. And playing ride cymbals without crashing the hell out of them, and things like that. But yeah, it's just a different avenue, a different area of my playing that doesn't get exposed a lot. So it is nice to do that. And yeah, it just reminded me of, you mentioned Ringo Starr earlier on. He wasn't an influence to me when I was young, because I didn't get into the Beatles till I was like 20, mid-20s. But like since then, he's like massively influenced me in every way. And people, he's so underestimated. I know loads of people think he's amazing, which he is, but he gets overlooked a lot. And I think he's a genius, essentially, even though he would admit that I don't think he's like musically qualified. That's not the right word, is it? He probably doesn't know much about
the theory
note
probably.
value, theory and
Yeah,
note values and things like that. But he knows how to feel a song, and how to
mm,
create a feel on a drum kit. And I feel like I kind of come from that era as well, because I know a bit more about theory than maybe he does, because I've done it in school and in university and stuff like that. But in terms of my drumming, it's all about feel at the end of the day. And that's how I always think about when people send me a song to record drums on. I'm like, well, it's important to get this feeling right.
mm.
And then I say it's about the sound, like what kind of sound and what kind of drum sound do we want to achieve here. But the main thing is the feeling, which is hard to describe, I know, but maybe you understand playing drums yourself.
No, I mean, yeah, like because I guess, yeah, you can get bogged down in tunings and key. Like, say,
Mm.
from a drummer's perspective, what's the key of the song, right? Matching the pitch of the snare to the key of the song, and this, that, and the other. Tuning is obviously very, very important, but I mean, you get.
I've never done that in my entire life. Never done that in my
Well,
entire life.
there's one. I can't. What band was it? It might have been the electro rock band. The guy was like, "Oh, we need to get the drums pitched to this key," and I was like, "Okay." And I did get it, but yeah, definitely you need, like obviously what cymbal do you use, what depth of tom, all this stuff, skins and whatever. But yeah, it's got to have that right feeling. It's got to feel good. Obviously, if someone's written a song and they've got like obviously like the stuff that Pete's done, which is he has he's a lot of really really good feedback and it's great. It's completely again that's his thing, his own little, obviously the Outlaws, he gets to, obviously we all get to be very creative equally. But yeah, it's got, if you've got a particular feeling of a song, it's got to match that. But yeah, it's got to feel, good. You don't want it to feel like, well, like you said, I don't know, say you're playing, someone sends you a folk song, and then you go all kind of Eloy Casagrande on it or whatever. It's got to,
Right.
it's all
Yeah,
got to be,
exactly.
relative to, and yeah, I think I'm exactly like you. You say don't come from an educated background in terms of drums, but like I've had a couple of lessons here and there. But I've been a bit, I always say stubborn to really progress and keep lessons going. But yeah, it's more feeling and just picking up by ear. And I mean, similarly, someone, again, I've made this argument all the time, you can get a theory drummer, place them in a band, no sheet music or anything, and they might be like, what's the time signature? Or but then similarly, you put like a practical bass drummer, say like you and me or whatever, and then put it into an environment where you got some sheet music. It's like, right, play that. You'd be like,
Yeah.
I just see a load of black stuff on a page, So it's kind of you can make the argument all day whatever's right or whatever's wrong. But yeah, I've been
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. You just pick it up by ear, and time signatures. I know quite a few, but just kind of like I don't know. You listen to Neil Peart or I don't know, some more like the proggy bands, let's say. I mean, yeah, you can use, I said, Rush, Genesis, yes, King Crimson, listen to Porcupine Tree, Gavin Harrison and stuff like that. Like, there's obviously a time signature, and you've obviously got to be able to count to play drums to an extent. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the feeling, and you can, especially live, you can sense where a song's going, and again, the time to push, the time to pull. But especially when you're writing songs, it's kind of, you kind of, I think you generally, with that feeling, everyone kind of normally locks onto it unless they go, no, that's not on brand with what we're trying to do in this bit. But yeah, playing by ear is how I've always learned, and that's I was always said, it's enabled me to play within what I'm doing, and that's enough. It works. Not overdoing it, not underdoing it, just kind of like so you find your kind of position, your place, and it works.
Yeah.
As soon as there's kind of conflict musically, you can definitely tell.
Yeah, and like I think I mentioned this earlier, it depends who you're playing with and what they want you to do,
Yeah.
or what the expectations of you are. And I guess that's similar then to being like where I was with Pete in the session musician field, I suppose. It would have been different if he was there with me, maybe.
Mm,
It was more he sent me a demo, I sent him a demo back. He said, yeah, that kind of thing is cool. And then I went into the studio and did it with my brother, and he wasn't present for any of it. I
mm,
guess it would have been great to have his input on it as I was doing it, maybe, but he was happy, I hope. And yeah, I think we did all right to kind of get a kind of the sound that we provided him suited the vibe he was going for, I hope. Um,
mm.
like that's where I said about the sound of the drums and the cymbals being a secondary thing, but very important. But then that's where they come in. It's like, well, and the dynamics, I guess, the overall dynamics of the track, because that's incredibly important. And again, Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons, there's not a lot of dynamics. It's either up there, and there's one song that's like there, and it goes up and down. Otherwise, it's all
Yeah.
full on. So I don't get to play with dynamics a lot. So yeah, it is fun to do that in the studio, and it's very, again, I guess that's a really important thing for any new drummers out there, or musicians really, is to kind of get used to playing softly and medium, velocity, and then really hard, because number one, it does affect the sound of the drums. Like if you hit a snare drum like at a medium force,
Yeah.
compared to smacking the hell out of it, it sounds different. So you need all these different things, and you need to know how to control your body to do them when you need to do them, or if you want to pull something out of the bag. So it is important, and I think a lot of drummers who are maybe used to playing electric kits, and they don't often get a chance to play behind a proper acoustic kit, struggle with that, because the electric kits do a lot of the processing, and and there's limitations with dynamics. I know they're getting better now, but I've sometimes I can tell when I can if I'm watching a drummer, I'm like, oh, you're an electric kit drummer, because it's more, I don't know, I feel it's more rigid, and then maybe not exploring the nuances and the feel of what acoustic drums and cymbals can achieve. So I don't know, it's interesting, but I might be totally wrong.
No, I think like the velocity and the sensitivity of not just how you play, but like obviously how the drums, because it works in both ways, how you respond to the drums and how the drums respond to you. And then
Yes.
you got to consider, right, what heads you're using, how thick the heads you're using, the kind of tip you're using on your stick, the tension of your drums, the positioning, how you sit above the kit, beneath it. There's so many different variables, the tension you got on your pedal, and so
Right.
and I think kind of obviously you get bogged down in it and stuff like that, but I find that bit really interesting. Is kind of like you find your sound, the equipment, you kind of because again it's the equipment you use suits the dynamics of, I guess, what suits the band. Like obviously I won't go into it too much, but with the stuff I use, we spoke about cymbals at, I think it was the gig we did at Thekla, and all the dark sort of cymbals that I use and stuff. It's about kind of color rather than projection, like say your A customs versus, I don't know, let's say a K custom, which is slightly a bit darker, and using like SimPad moderator things to kind of enhance the resonance, but just to kind of slightly quell the volume. It's just every kind of decision you make on your equipment has a massive impact on how it sounds. It's like, I don't know, the wood a guitar's made out of, all the pedals you use and all that. So it all has an effect. But again, it's what sound you want, the band you're in, and so many different nuance, things to consider in the mechanics of being a player. And like you said, I think because I started drumming when I was like 10, 11, I think my mum and dad wanted me to go to. They didn't want me to go to church. They just wanted me to get out of bed and stop being a lazy bugger. I think I ended up finding like a modern church, and they didn't have a drummer. I think I started playing. I wasn't very good, but I think someone in the congregation at the front, this lady, whatever, and she was like, "You're very loud. You play a bit quieter." And I was like, "Pardon? Play quieter?" So like, well, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Yeah, and it is such a thing in terms of it's practice, but I think again it's this maturity, and I think I said this in our podcast, and I think I've said it in probably every one I've done so far, is you get to a point where I guess it's like driving a car. If you understand how to drive a car, that's fine. But then being a driver, in terms of being aware of your surroundings and how all that, affects your driving, it's the difference between being a drummer, so being able to play, and being a musician where you're, aware of what you do and how everyone else interacts in the bigger sort of picture. That's the real sort of difference. And playing quiet is, I remember what I said when I started, it's quite a difficult thing to do, because you kind of automatically want to just bang, 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 bang. But it's like you hear some drums like Jeff Porcaro, and you hear his work on, his Ghost Notes. and then even Gavin Harris, I listen to it, I think, how's he doing that? And I'm kind of like, okay, focusing on the ghost notes. I'm like, but how's he doing that shuffle thing on the hi-hat and doing the ghost notes on that? I'm like, oh, you just listen to it again and again. Eventually you kind of pick it up. But yeah.
A lot of that's the difference between me and you. Probably have not practiced even a tiny amount as much as these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, there's natural talent, which is a thing, but it's all down to how much time you put into it, I think, and how much you want to explore the hi-hat ghost notes. Is like, that's incredible. Like I was speaking to a drummer the other day. He was in one of the support bands, and I was like, oh, I really liked your hi-hat footwork. And I was like, I barely ever use the hi-hat foot pedal when I'm playing, because I've never really put much time into practicing it. I can do it on 2 and 4 sometimes. But when it goes, he was kind of full on every song. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So again, it depends how you're taught. No one taught me how to do that stuff. I've never really been in a band that doing that would be that audible either. Again, so like, again, do I need to spend hours and hours doing this for the bands I'm in? Probably not.
Mm.
Could I be a much better drummer overall if I did that? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, everyone can, I think, to an extent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think I just got to a stage. I think I'm obviously lucky because I got to a stage relatively young where I was in a touring band making a few quid, and I was always in bands playing songs, practicing songs instead of practicing how to be a better drummer or practicing or learning new things, because that's what lessons do. And I think that's why I really regret not being a guy that went to a drum teacher when I was younger, because I think they kind of force you to go in these uncomfortable directions and open up your playing a lot more. And that's one thing I don't do. And I've always thought, when things get a bit quieter, maybe I'll get some lessons again. But things haven't got quieter.
No,
I just
selling houses, having a baby, not you personally having it, obviously. Yeah, and the very frequent touring. Yeah, it's finding time. Even like to break out the practice pad in the back of a tour bus or something. Sometimes you have got time for that because like, you're knackered, you're hungry, you need to go to the toilet, and in between all that, you're like, I've got time.
No, like I do take a little practice pad on tour with me, with the intention to maybe spend 5-10 minutes on it before I go on stage, just to warm my hands up. I don't really do that as much as I should.
So end up using it as a frisbee between you and the sound tech. Just like, there you
go. Yeah. Well, exactly. It's stupid, and I think if I was in a more demanding band that required a bit more finesse, which I don't think my band comes under that, maybe I'd have to do these things. Or maybe when I get a little bit older and things start slowing down, maybe I might have to do that more. I should do it now. I just, it's just so many things going on. You finish sound check, you think, oh, I got 3 hours until the show, and then that time just goes so quick. You're meeting friends and fans, and you phone calls to your son and and your wife, and all in this time, getting something to eat. And then next thing you know, we're on stage in half an hour. Oh shit, let's get ready, get your clothes on. And then I got to go and do the line check. I better go and do line check. And then it's 5 minutes till our intro tape. It was like, so much time. What's the point in warming up now? And then I got to go from a warm-ish dressing room. Sometimes I've got to go outside in the freezing cold in my shorts and my vest. So I'm not warming up. I'm just cold. Any warming up I've done has just been erased.
Yeah.
To go to the stage, and then it's like, I guess it's different situations make it easier. But like, I'm quite often in those situations where, especially touring in winter in Europe, but there's not many warm places really. what warm doesn't exist. On stage, maybe after a few songs it warms up, but I don't know. But that's the thing. I think it is important, and I'm lucky. I think I'm still fairly okay with my joints. I get the odd issue with my right knee plays up sometimes when I tour a lot. Again, that's probably bad technique because I just possibly because I don't know, I bury the beater into the head, and I've always done that, and that's how you get I get the best volume velocity by doing that, which is probably accurate. But unfortunately, your knee takes a bit of a battering.
Yeah, a lot of people, they don't bury it, but it's just like
I can't get the same volume that way.
Yeah.
It's a different sound. It's a more open sound, and what you'll find being in a rock band, sound engineers want a dead bass drum anyway. They don't want any. They just want a short, loud, fat sound. They don't really want many other frequencies going on. So if I did play with the
sort of the rebound,
head, they'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing? I don't want that. That's just giving me feedback." Oh. So you've got to play to suit these people, because at the end of the day, they're in control of how you sound out front as a band, and that's why sometimes I get forced to add extra dampening to my drums that I don't particularly like, because to them it sounds better, and they're able to make the band sound better by me doing that. So I just give in. I know a lot of other drummers will refuse. They're like, "No, I'm not putting moon gels on my toms."
Yeah.
And then if the sound engineer is going to struggle with that, well, you've kind of shot yourself in the foot there. I know to you it probably doesn't sound as good and as natural, but it might mean that your drums are not going to sound as punchy from the front of house. So anyone in that audience, it sounds inferior to them because you've decided not to do that. So I just go with this. We use different sound engineers for different shows, and sometimes they've all got their different abilities and different preferences. So like I just kind of roll with it. If they say, "Oh, can you stick another moon gel on your snare?" I'll go,
"Okay, yeah.
Is this okay?" Or I'm not going to be like, "No, I like it as it is." Sometimes I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay." But like if that, because ultimately I know that's going to make us sound better out front, and that's the most important thing. So I think that's an important lesson there.
I think again, like maturity. I think dampening. I think I think anyway, it's quite important. Like the Simpad stuff I use, the cymbals I use, I call them natural dampening. Like just I know how they behave, I know their sound, so and the heads I use, like on my toms I use Code double ply, twin ply generator heads, and I use that on the batter and the resonant head. So because I play a copper kit, still play it. That gives me like a sort of a natural dampening anyway, sort of without the need to use any dampening, but still I'll use like these sky gel dampeners and stuff. Some are slightly bigger, some are slightly smaller, and it's just I can customize, because I think again, tuning without getting bogged down into it. Say it is an exact science, but you can tell when something sounds off. If there's a lug that's off, at an overtone that doesn't quite sort of sit, and you can sort of kill those with the gels. And actually, and especially in a smaller room, you've got to think about acoustics and stuff. That really helps. If you're kind of booming everywhere, like John Bonham in a toilet cubicle sort of thing. Sounds a bit dodgy, but you know what I mean. If you're playing too loud to suit the size and the acoustics of the room, it's just going to bleed everywhere, and it's just going to be just too loud. So I think dampening is quite, I personally think anyway, important. Obviously, like snare weights and all. So many different devices and tools. People even still putting bits of cotton wool in the bottom of their floor tom.
I do that,
and loads of there's so many different things. Don't put gaffer tape on your drums or your heads. It just silly thing. Definitely don't put it on your cymbals again. That's silly.
That's actually one thing I won't do. If someone asks me to gaffer to tape my cymbals, I'll say, "I'm sorry, they're too expensive, and they'll literally be ruined because
Yeah.
that sticky stuff doesn't come off.
Yeah. So I'll gaffer
And
tape it if you can spend time cleaning all the sticky residue off it afterwards.
for this one gig, yeah. So that's one thing I don't do, but yeah. So, but everything else, you've got to be open to it, and it's always good to have a bag of bits with you whenever you tour. If it's just a one-off gig, just like you said, depending on the room, your kit might sound lovely in your practice room or whatever, but once you've transported it to whatever gig you're playing, it's going to behave differently. It's going to resonate differently. The tuning might have changed a little bit, and sometimes you don't have time to retune the whole kit. In a 15-minute changeover after another band's played or whatever. So sometimes it's just
you've got to go with it.
Yeah, whap that gel on or whatever, snare weight or whatever, what people use. The drummer from Accept, so they were the headline band that we just toured with. I was speaking to his tech, his snare drum. He literally had a bag of, I think it was like a bag of screws on his snare drum, at the top of his snare drum. He was using that as like a dampener. Like you just put a bit of gaffer tape, kind of similar to like how a snare weight would work. So it like lifts up when you hit it.
Oh yeah, like a gate, yeah.
Yeah, but it was literally a bag of screws. That's what he was using. I was like, first time I've ever seen that. I know a lot of people put their wallet on it.
Yeah.
A wallet on this. That's an old school thing. I've never done that, but if needs a must, I would. But yeah, it's important, and it's good to be open about stuff like this, and don't be too much of a purist, because there's a lot of those out there. You just go on any Facebook drumming group, and someone asks a question about dampening. Oh, I've never dampened my drums in 40 years, and I've played to 250 people. And there's all these people like from different parts of their careers. Some people professional, semi-professional, amateur, whatever. That's not the important thing, but there's a lot of people that are like really against it, and I don't understand why.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you know what? Actually, thinking about it again, long time ago, the whole dampening thing. I think my theory was like, I don't want to dampen my drums because I feel like drums should sound. Sound bad. They should sound great without having to faff about and put sticky tape or put all this sort of stuff on it. Why is there shouldn't be a need for it? A bit like you'll see the parallel. It's completely nothing to do with music, but you'll see the parallel. It's like after my mum passed away, and then my dad passed away and stuff like that. And I was like, people saying, take tablets, it'll help. I was like, no, I don't want to take medication. I'm mentally and emotionally strong, enough to, I want to be able to fix it myself, without the need of tablets. But it's like, I guess you got a cold, flu. You take cold and flu, you got a headache, you take paracetamol, very much similar principle. But after I took the tablets and obviously various ones and this, that and the other, it helped, it worked. And that's the thing, you've got to do those, those things sometimes, and it does sort of say fix it, it manages it, and it so you got to be willing to, I got a leap of faith. I don't think it's even that, it's just, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do get that. And I think, like, if it's just drums in a room for your enjoyment or a band practice or whatever, I think the more open they are, the better. But when the mics get involved, I think that's where it makes a difference, and depending on the area. I do know what you mean about medication and stuff like that. But it's interesting to hear that come from you, actually. So I appreciate that. And good. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wrap this up very
no I think we've sort of an hour, sort of 42ish, but
I didn't realize how much time had passed. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, like I said, it's been an absolute, like I said, pleasure. Obviously talking to someone who's obviously, you got a family, I've got a family, and kind of we're all
Yeah.
trying to juggle sort of the same thing, and obviously all the kind of physical, mental, and emotional challenges, ups and downs that come with just sort of life in general, and just I think I've mentioned it a few times, just never be afraid to like speak out or ask for help and stuff, because I think as much as the thing is, we're not, no one's, and this is not just in talking from like a mental health point of view or physical or whatever, is we're not supermen, we're not superheroes, although our
No.
kids think we've got 100% energy all the time because they have, but yeah, we're not Superman, but like you can only do what you can do, and sometimes what you're only able to do at any given point, sometimes that is good enough, and it's kind of like try not to sort of beat yourself up about it all. And I think, to be honest, like my wife, she does her business making candles and wax melts, and she's quite witchy and spiritual, and so there's a lot of like spiritual aspects of, you call it manifestation and things like that. It's kind of like trying to start your day with positivity, having a positive outlook. Obviously things come in the way, and fuck that up, but yeah, kind of like yeah, but like trying to put a foot forward in the intention you're going to have a really good day, and just kind of I think it's kind of really, it's being grateful and thankful for like the tiniest of things that are actually like a big deal, like your family, all the kind of opportunities and your friends and all that that you have. It's those things that kind of make everything worth kind of doing, and like I said, doing this now, you make and have helped me make this worth doing in general, and just kind of
cool.
Connecting with you on a on a level, and just kind of I said from the beginning, giving me the confidence to do it, and there's no judgment here, it's all we're all friends, and it's just really good since I first got to meet you, and like I said, I'm hoping I'll see you on the road at some point, and so we can have a beer and just have a giggle, and but I hope you, Felix, and your wife, I hope you have a really good Christmas. For anyone who's watching, this is like what we're on the 9th, 10th or something of December, so have a really good Christmas. Don't sweat the small stuff. Wrap up warm, and I hope you, Felix, and the wife have a really good time.
Same to you, man, and really appreciate you having me on as a guest, because I know we've talked about this for some months now, and it's been partly my fault for why we haven't done it. Well, mostly my fault.
No,
but it's always nice. It's always nice to be on the other end of one of these conversations on someone else's show, and hopefully I'll help you in some way. And I'm sure, because I haven't done one of these for a long time, that there might be some people that like my stuff would be interested to hear this, because apart from what I put on the internet, they haven't heard a lot from me recently. So I'll try and share it as best as I can when it's out, and to help you out. And but hopefully you'll all have a lovely Christmas, and we won't get any more storms blowing people's fences down and
trampolines,
like
kind of ending up in your garden. Although if that happened, I know my kids would be, "Oh, we got a trampoline." It's not yours. Give it back.
Finders keepers. No,
that's it.
But yeah, cheers, Ryan. Hope you and the boys and the family all the best, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, I said hopefully see you for a beer sometime. All right, all the best. Merry Christmas.
Cheers, mate. Merry Christmas.